Hello everybody, it's Andy Nolch here with KR number 8, and this KR is all about LRH and the fact that I don't care about what he did. Because I notice that people who don't like Scientology, they tend to say, Hubbard did this or that. How the hell can you be promoting Scientology or like Scientology? And it's... A lot of Scientologists think this in that they go, obviously I like L. Ron Hubbard, right? But it's like, who cares if you like him or not? It doesn't matter. We like Scientology. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm in it for. I'm in it for the philosophy, the information, the auditing. That's what I like. I don't care what L. Ron Hubbard did. And, it's really interesting because you can listen to interview after interview, right, with people talking about how they don't like or talking about bad things about the church, but they ignore, right, all the cool stuff about Scientology and all the good stuff that Hubbard did. And they say, like, for example, apparently Hubbard had some anger problems, right, and sometimes yell at people. So they'll talk about that, and then they just ignore all this other cool stuff that Hubbard's done. Like, I don't think Hubbard was perfect, and I think if you speak to a lot of... Well, actually, some Scientologists probably think he had nothing wrong with him, but there are a lot of Scientologists who do acknowledge, especially amongst the independents, that he did have a bit of a bad side to him. You know what I mean? But his good side was really awesome, and his good side was like this big. You know what I mean? And you might be listening and you might be getting like confused and thinking, what the hell? Like, I listened to someone like Chris Shelton and he says that the good in Scientology is like this much and the bad is like this much. I don't know what world he lives in, but I guess he didn't get anything from his Scientology experience. Like, he didn't get wins from the auditing tech. I guess he didn't get wins from reading the books. That's all I can think of, because for me and for other people who are Scientologists, we got a lot. The good side was this much, and the bad side was this much. So who are you going to believe? And I don't think there is a true answer to it. It's like saying, why do some people like jazz music and some don't? Some people just like jazz music. So you can't argue who's right or wrong in the situation. So between me and Chris Shelton, right, we can't argue. There's no way of arguing who's right or wrong. Okay, he might have got this much wins from the tech, and I got this much wins from the tech. You know what I mean? Like, I guess that's just how it is. I mean, my personal opinion, right, is the fact that he did Scientology in the church. And I don't think that the Scientology is that good in the church. I think it's good in the independent field. That's why I'm not part of the church, right? So that's my explanation for why he only got small wins. And a lot of other people who say bad stuff about Hubbard, or about Scientology and the wins and that sort of stuff, who don't think the wins are that good. They only think the wins are this good. I think that they haven't had a really good go at trying Scientology and seeing what the auditing tech is like. Then, then we can discuss when they actually try it, like, outside of the church and not, in a strict church and all that sort of stuff. Because the strictness of the church is stopping the wins from happening for people who are Scientologists. Like, since I left the church, my wins have been like way more. Because you don't have like this church like weighing down, controlling you. But anyway, back to the whole thing about people saying that Hubbard was bad. I just got to say this again. I don't care. I don't care. Honestly, I don't go around saying Hubbard Center, oh, it's all about Hubbard. It's all about Scientology. You know what I mean? Like, I think Hubbard was a cool guy who invented it, that maybe had some anger problems, okay? But he doesn't matter. It's not him. It's Scientology. That's the cool thing. You know what I mean? That's this alternative practice, this unusual, funky new religion that started in the 50s. That's where the coolness is. You know? That's where the fun is. So it's just like, whatever. You know what I mean? And the thing is about Hubbard as well is, Hubbard considered Scientology more important than him. He didn't care about his own name and his own personality and all that sort of stuff. He knew he was just being a person for this lifetime, and he threw himself under the bus and said, screw it, it's all about Scientology. I'm doing anything to get Scientology big. And he was willing to maybe do some bad things or give Hubbard a bad name, but it doesn't matter as long as Scientology gets it and makes it. Do you know what I mean? Like, he was willing to risk his own life in order to protect Scientology. He was willing to do all these things because he knew that a name is just a name. It's just a label that you have for like 70 years or whatever, and then it's over. Who cares about that? He was much more interested in Scientology. You know? It's like, how can I try and imagine it like this, right? Let's say you've written a really, really awesome book, right? And you really want to get this book published, and you really, really want the people of the world to read your book, right? And you do some like dodgy stuff, and you don't care about your own reputation. You just do anything that will get that book out to the world, right? That might be kind of what Hubbard did. You know, he looked at it, he said, this is great information I'm discovering, all this sort of stuff. Scientology is the most important thing. And this is what Sea Org people do as well. It's just all about Scientology. Screw my own personal identity. It's all about the group, you know what I mean? It's all about saving mankind. So that's just when I sometimes hear some things that where I don't believe all the stuff they say, right? But when they say some things saying that Hubbard could have been bad, I just go, well, who cares? He was doing it to forward Scientology. Do you know what I mean? It's all about... let me put it this way. If you discovered the cure for cancer, right? If you're a selfish person, obviously, right? Let's say you try and let everyone know about this cure of cancer, right? But you're a selfish person and people start attacking you and you get your computer crashes and then someone pops tires in your car and you start getting attacks and people make fun of you on TV or something. You'll start, if you're selfish, you start going, screw it, I don't care, I found this cancer cure, but it's just affecting me too much. But if you really care about humanity, right, and this is what I think Hubbard was like, and you really knew how important this cancer cure was, you would go, screw it, who cares? Let myself have a terrible reputation. Let my car tires get popped. It doesn't matter. All that matters is if I get this cure out there and people find out about it. And Hubbard did that with Scientology. He got Scientology out there. He started a church, a full church. You know, it's worth billions of dollars. That's amazing. Like, some people can't even run fish and chip shops. You know what I mean? Let alone he managed to start this huge church organization, you know what I mean? There's a reason why it exists, because him and other dedicated and passionate Sea Org people said, we're getting this done and we're making it happen, right? And yes, it's been a bumpy road and the church got corrupted and stuff went bad on the way, but in the end, Hubbard won. In the end, he's won. He doesn't care what some sort of critics say on the internet attacking him and that sort of stuff. He doesn't care that someone attack someone on the internet saying some crap about fair game. He's laughing. He's laughing all the way to the bank. He won. He's the winner in the situation. He's got this church, and like now, you know, it's not really that good because David Miscavige is running it and all that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, he's got a worldwide church, a huge organization, you know, that's going to be around for a long time. You know, in the end, he got there. It was a really rough ride, but he got there and he made it happen. You know, it's kind of like Trump. Like, on the way, when Trump was getting elected, right, that was a wild election and shit was going crazy, and there was that talk about that pussy talk that came out about Trump. So it was a controversial thing and it was like, woo, all this sort of stuff. But in the end, Trump got in. He got elected. He did it. So he wins. It doesn't matter that like there's a bunch of left-wingers in America that like protested when he got voted in, and they were protesting on the streets like, oh, bad Trump and all this stuff. He doesn't care. He's laughing all the way to the White House. He got in. He made it. You know what I mean? He was obviously willing to do anything to get in. And Hubbard was the same, like as in he was just like, Scientology is awesome, it's this great thing, it's got great philosophies, it sorts out people's lives. Being an atheist is shit. I've experienced what it's like being an atheist. I mean, there's nothing more depressing than being an atheist. Like, it's just boring. Like, there's no... And you might think, oh, Andy, so you're just believing in Scientology because it's interesting. No, I actually have seen evidence to actually believe in it. But besides, let's just say Scientology wasn't true, right? Atheism is just boring. The atheist life is not a happy life. Anyway, you just don't have any morals or any, like, interest in things, or, like... It's just like you're just obsessed with mainstream science, and anyway, it's just... I don't know. I don't like it. You know what I mean? I didn't enjoy it. You know what I mean? Because I pretty much was an atheist before I was a Scientologist, and I didn't enjoy it. But when I became a Scientologist and I actually believed it, and I am now, I like it. I think it's good. Like, it's enjoyable and things are exciting and all this sort of stuff. But I'm not just believing it because it's more enjoyable. I go with what's the truth, and Scientology is in the direction of the truth, whereas atheism isn't. You know? Anyway, so, you know, in the end, Hubbard won. That's it. He got there. You know what I mean? He made the church. He won. He's got the flag, this flag building in, like, Clearwater, Florida, right? That, like, this huge building and these other buildings, and it's like this huge mecca, right? It's like a whole Scientology town. There's a lot of Scientology churches around LA area, you know. And it's going to be around for a long time. Even after Anonymous and all these people like Chris Shelton making all these videos and stuff, and Tony Ortega continually bagging it, and Richard Dawkins Foundation. If you search Scientology, up in Google comes Richard Dawkins Foundation, and it's information that's bagging Scientology. And it's like, what the hell are they doing promoting? Like, they're paying for these ads. Richard Dawkins Foundation, right, is going to Google and giving them money, saying if people search Scientology, make our ad come up that says Scientology's crap, right? I don't know why they care, but anyway, it's weird. But you know, yeah, okay, things went bad when Hubbard got out of the picture and his wife left and stuff like that, and Miscavige took over and that sort of stuff. But Scientology's still good. My 5 years involved with the church was still totally worthwhile. I don't regret it at all. Like, the church is corrupted, right? But it's like, in the end, I came out on top and better than ever. And it was great leaving and all this sort of stuff. But I'm so happy that Hubbard fought so hard in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, right? I'm so happy he fought so hard, because in Melbourne, there was a centre that I could go into and I could try Scientology for like a 5-year period of my life. And I don't regret it at all. You know? I thought it was amazing, you know? And this is what's interesting as well, comparing independent Scientology, right, compared to the more corrupted Church of Scientology. It's like, Scientology is so good that even when it's corrupted, it's still good. I'm serious. You know what I mean? Like, yes, you hear some stories, right, of some people on the internet who had a bad experience and they're ranting, but you don't understand the thousands of people that aren't bothering to make videos. The reason why I'm doing it is because there's not that many people doing it, so I'm just like, that's it, I've got to go out here and make some videos. I have to start evening up this balance, right? You get the church members who try and avoid the internet totally, and anything to do with Scientology, they avoid it because they're sort of told from the church. But they could, if they wanted to, they could make videos saying how much they like Scientology, but they're not really allowed to, right? And then you've got the independents, right? And a lot of them aren't making videos on YouTube saying how much they like Scientology. Just a lot of people don't bother. You know what I mean? All you do is you get a lot of people who are like really upset from what they've had, their experience, and they're the ones who are making the videos, you know? And it's just like, you have to understand, when you're watching people like Chris Shelton and, I don't know, some other people, they just had some bad experiences, right? And they're not the majority. They're not the majority. They're not. It seems like it, but they're not. There are plenty of people who, like, were kind of cool with their experience with Scientology and were fine with it, but they're just not making videos, you know? And that brings up another point, right? You could make a YouTube channel saying abuses of the army, right? And you could interview people who had a bad experience in the army, and after watching videos and videos of this, you'd think, gosh, the army is a horrible thing. I mean, there's all this crazy stuff going on in the army, but it's just like, that's what happens when you got someone who's running the channel who hates the army and is specifically going out and finding people who had bad experiences in the army, you know? I'm not saying the church isn't corrupted. I know it's corrupted. But I'm just saying it's not as bad as what they make it out to be. You know? And then people come along and they see these videos of the army and they go, oh my God, the army is horrific, because they haven't been in the army. And it's just like, no, there are tons of people that have good experiences with the army who work for them and all this sort of stuff, but you just don't hear about their stories. You just hear about the bad ones. You know? Because I was thinking about this, right? Because I remember speaking to a girl who was in a psych ward because she was a bit nutty and stuff, and she told me how she got like raped by like 20 army guys. So somehow she got into the barracks. I think she was a bit of a slurry, right? She somehow got into the barracks and like 20 guys had their way with her or whatever. And sorry, the reason I know it's not good to laugh about victims and stuff, but the reason why I'm saying this is because I think she kind of wanted to get into this situation. The way she told the story, and she mentioned some other things to me as well that indicated that she had like a strong second dynamic and she liked those sort of activities. And she might have gone through a bad experience, but she was kind of an accomplice in the crime, if you know what I mean. So, you know, and she told me a story about her experience in this army thing, about getting raped. And I thought, you know, yeah, you don't hear about these sort of stories. Like I'm sure there's tons of stories of people getting beaten up in the army. There's tons of stories about like people committing suicide in the army. You know what I mean? There's another guy, right, who was talking to me, who told me that he applied for a job as a policeman, and he went to the training camp, and on the training camp, the dudes who were running it, the policemen who were running it, knew him from friend of a friend or something, and they hated him and they beat him up. Like they literally like abused him and beat him up for like a whole 2 days, right? It was like being tortured, right? And it was like, wow, you don't hear about these stories. People don't talk about them, right? Because they're the government and they're the police and all this sort of things. And the media, I think, aren't even allowed to talk about these sort of things because it's painting a nation in a bad way. But of course they can say bad stuff about Scientology. They can totally bag the church. There's no problems with that. Do you know what I mean? So what I'm saying is you can have a YouTube channel that is all about horror stories in the army, and you'd think that the army must be really, really horrible, right? But it's not necessarily the case. And it's the same with the Church of Scientology. You can have a channel that just specifically hunts out the people who got beaten up. It's just like there's CEOs where people get beaten up. There's probably in a McDonald's store, staff probably beat each other and got into a fight. You know what I mean? But like, of course, you can go and find people who are victims or whatever of Scientology and make the channel and make all these videos, and suddenly you're thinking, wow, the Church of Scientology is the worst thing in the universe. Like, oh my God, this is really a horrific cult. And it's just like, it's not really that bad. You know what I mean? Like, yes, it's corrupt, but it's just like, you know, these sorts of things happen in armies and in police, whatever you call them. When you've got thousands of people involved in big organizations, of course there's going to be a pedophile in that organization that'll do something. Of course there's going to be some really angry fighter dude that's going to beat up some people like what David Miscavige does. You know what I mean? It's just how organizations with people are here on Earth. Okay? So it's just like, I'm just trying to give a balance to the argument, because it's just like, if you hit the internet, you just see all these videos that are just bagging the shit out of Scientology, and it's just like, this just isn't true. This is just totally one side of the argument. You know what I mean? It's like, well, and again, think of it like Trump, for example. I mean, there are plenty of people who absolutely love Trump, and then there are plenty of people who absolutely hate Trump. What's the truth about him then? Is he a good or a bad guy? How can you tell? How can you know? You know what I mean? So this is just the thing. Well, my personal opinion on Trump is that there are people who are like these left-winger type of people who are really emotional, that are like, he said something about pussy, and they get like really like, they literally like freak out, and they're just over-emotional, and they're like sensitive to words. I've been around people like this. People below tone 2 are sensitive to words. I've been around someone like this, and I remember he said to me, oh, that word scares me. Just the word fear scares me. He's like, just hearing the word fear or writing it scares him. So, fear, like that's how words affect him. So Trump said some things that were not politically correct, and so they're like, fear, Trump's the worst thing ever, and all he did was say words. Did he open up concentration camps? No. Did he send jobs overseas? No. Like, he just said some stuff, and people are just like, worst thing ever. But because they're sensitive. They're sensitive to all these things. You know what I mean? So it's the same with Hubbard. Like, some people go into the church and they experience certain things, and they're like, Scientology, Hubbard, it was bad, it really affected me. And it's just like, whoa, calm down. You're just over-emotional and oversensitive, okay? Like, yes, you might have had a bit of a bad experience, but also, how come your neighbour, Joe Blow, had a good experience? Why is it they had a good experience and you didn't? What's going on there? What did you add to the situation to make it a bad experience? And then you find out that they took out tons of credit card debt and got themselves into trouble, and they also signed a contract that they didn't even really believe in. They just signed a billion-year contract because they wanted to or whatever, or they were sort of forced into it. Like, at the end of the day, you're the one who signed the contract. You know what I mean? And they also say things like, They go, I worked for the Sea Org for like 30 years and it was like for $1 a day or whatever. It's outrageous. I want my money back. And it's just like, whoa, hold on, Joe Blow. You signed the contract. Why after 1 month didn't you complain that you never got your pay and leave? You know what I mean? You're volunteering. Bad luck, you know? Like, yes, the church does bad things. Like, they forced me to sign a contract as well when I was involved with them and that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, I still signed it and I took responsibility for it. You know what I mean? I let them pressure me into signing it. I don't walk around going around, I'm a victim. Oh, they got me into debt. Oh, it's just like, I didn't let them get me into further debt because I know I'm in control of my own behavior. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, you're responsible for what happened. You know what I mean? Like, yes, these organisations are corrupt and they encourage you, like banks, they're corrupt and they encourage you to get into debt that you can't even afford. But at the end of the day, you're the one who goes along with it. And the thing that's wrong with you and the thing that's wrong with the world and the thing that's wrong with me is we're not taking enough responsibility for ourselves. You have to stop blaming other people. And these people who have channels like Chris Shelton's and all this sort of stuff, they're just too much blaming of other people. And blaming the church, it's the church's fault, and blah, 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 it's all this' fault, and putting all the blame over there. Why do you think the person's in trouble in the first place? Because for their whole life, they've been blaming other sources and blaming other people instead of stopping and taking responsibility for themselves and realising that, hey, I'm the one who's putting the blame onto other people, whereas I should be accepting the blame. You know? So anyway, and I got on a bit of a rant here, but, you know, look, my experiences and a lot of other people's experiences, they've had amazing experiences with Scientology and they've really improved themselves. So they think of the good side as being this high, and the bad side of Hubbard was this much, and they don't really care. And I think that Hubbard knew that some of the things he was doing were kind of wrong, but he didn't care because he knew that it would create a church and would force the church to happen. Because it's really hard to come up with like a multi-million-dollar organisation that's like a whole huge church. That's incredibly hard to help create. And he was the main person who created Scientology. There are other people who are involved with Scientology and who are involved with creating it as well. Where are they? They don't get blamed. It's just everything gets put on Hubbard. So, at the end of the day, here's one. And now they've got Scientology TV channel coming to cable TV. It's one of the major religions of the world. Like, that's it. It's happened now. It's one of the major religions of the world. It's here to stay. It's too cool to get thrown away, you know. It's a too interesting creation for it to just disappear, you know. And these people who hate it are just totally... Maybe I'm exaggerating the good side of Scientology, okay? I'll admit. Okay, maybe. But it's not what people like Chris Shelton say it is. And the reason I'm picking on him so much is just because he's a perfect anti-Scientology person. Like, he epitomizes anti-Scientologist perfect. Like, if you look up the definition of I think it's an apostate, it's basically someone who believed in something, was going along so long, then had a bad experience and then totally flips. Now suddenly they hate everything to do with that person. It's kind of like someone has a messy breakup and then they see something, a gift that that person gave them, like a watch, and they're like, screw this watch is ugly, I've always hated this watch. And then they walk around, they go, oh, that movie, I saw that movie with that ex-partner of mine, I hate that movie's crap, and oh, I went to a holiday to Bali with that person, and oh, Bali's crap. And it's just like, it's just a total flip because they've had a too bad of experience, so they totally flip and they just hate Scientology too much. It's a classic example of A equals A. Perfect example. Anyway, so that's why I'm mentioning Chris, because he's a perfect example. He's just a perfect model of a Scientology hater, because there's heaps of other ones out there, but he's just on my mind at the moment. They do the same thing that Sahi do. They think the same way. They make the same videos. So, you know, the wins that he talks about wins this big. That's probably wins for him. Like, he was probably busy running around working for the Sea Org all the time and not trying to get case gain, you know? That's another thing about Scientology is you have to take responsibility for yourself. So if you're working for the church and you want to go up the bridge, you have to make that happen. You know, and you're forced, you have to make it. I remember I was volunteering on staff and I had to, like, force it to happen. Like, I had to be like, no, I'm getting in there, I'm blah, 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 not letting people push me around. Whereas other people might let themselves get pushed around, and then for years they can be involved with the church and not get up the bridge. That's their own fault. When I was involved with the church, there was a lady who had been involved for like 20 years, and she hadn't got up the bridge. And I actually wrote a knowledge report on her, because I think this is actually a total knowledge report worthy thing. I said, this person's been involved in Scientology for 20 years. Right? And all they're doing is working crazy hard on post and not getting themselves up the bridge. If they get themselves up the bridge, they'll be a much better volunteer for the church. And I put that down as a KR worthy. Because I think it's a KR worthy thing. For 20 years, you know what I mean? It's an overt. That's what I'm trying to say. It's an overt to be involved with the church for so long and to not be forcing yourself to to get up the bridge. And the person who I'm thinking of, right, is actually low-toned, and they're actually avoiding going in session. I could see it. Because I noticed that with people who are low-toned, especially as 1-1s, they tend to actually avoid getting processed because it's for whatever reason. You know what I mean? It's just how their case is. It's why they're low-toned, because they don't want to get in session and get help. Anyway, so I don't think it's good to write KRs about things that aren't really serious, but this, I think, 20 years, and you've only done like a pure and like a few objective processes. You know what I mean? That's ridiculous. 20 years, that's ridiculous. You need to be like, you should be clear for sure by then, you know? And you can't use the excuse that you're busy working on post, because you got to sort that out. You got to like force time off post, and you just got to sort these things out. Anyway, so, you know, just don't believe the side, because it's just not true. I've spoken to too many people, interviewed too many people. Don't believe the people who say the wins in Scientology are like this big and the bad side's like this big. The wins are like this big and the bad's like, when you're involved with the church, is like this big or something. You know what I mean? But it's still, I still think if you're involved with the church, the wins are better than the badness, right? And then if you do independent Scientology, then the badness is just like the cost, which is way cheaper in independent Scientology, and it's probably going to have a little bit of annoyances, I'm sure. Like, just the fact that you have to arrive to get audited and you have to be involved with an organisation and talk to people and stuff. So it's got a bit of the annoyance, you know what I mean, of things you have to do. But the wins are this good. It's nothing compared to the church. It's way more freer and positive and stuff. So the badness is like this big, but the wins are like this big. So, you know, so either way, it's better if you're involved with the church or the independents. It's you, in the end, it's better, you know. So that's it for this KR. The full interview with me and Alan Stanfield is now on the podcast, the Indie Scientology podcast, so you can check that out. It's podcast number 13. And I think it's almost the longest interview I've done, because we talk a lot, and Alan's a really interesting person. He's got an interesting perspective. So check that out, and, you know, I just, you know, I don't expect you all to agree with me, but you know, because this video is almost more addressed at these people who don't like Scientology, but I hope you can at least think about what I'm saying, you know what I mean, and at least think maybe I'm making some good points. But anyway, it's up to you.